Unit 2 of Adult Health and Social Care, NVQ3. So I have 3 questions to deal on this unit. The first question says, identify legislations of practice that relate to handling information in adult care. The second question says, summarize the main legal requirements and code of handling information in adult care. The third question says, describe features of manual and electronic information storage that helps ensure security. So the first question, identify legislation of practice that relate to handling information in adult care. First of all, when they say identify, they are not expecting you to start writing, a lot of things. Just list. It's a kind of list, and at the side, just attach what maybe 1 or 2 sentences, and that's it. So, talking about legislations of practice that relate to handling information in adult care, all these things are they want you to tell them about legislations made, the rules made that guide the use or the handling of people's information or data. You know what? Handling information, how people's information, private data, information should be handled. Which legislation are related to this? Which legislation would you find your right on how your information or your data should be handled? You get what this question is asking. So first of all, we have General Data Protection Regulation. This regulation makes sure that individuals' data are protected and secured. Full stop. Remember, they said identify. In your assignment, once you see list, identify, you don't need to say too much, because in the subsequent question, there might be option for you to describe, explain, you know, then you have to start saying more things. But when they say identify, it's just like list, just list bullet point. But when they say identify, yes, bullet point, but just 1 sentence or 2 is enough. Okay, so that is for General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. They make sure that individuals' data are protected and secured. The second one I have here, Data Protection Act, DPA. This legislation controls how individuals' data is being collected, stored, used, and shared. They are responsible, they protect, they control how your information, your private personal information, how it will be collected, how it will be stored, how it will be used, and how it will be shared. The next one I have here is Human Rights Act 1998. So the Article 8 of this Human Rights Act gives you the right to private life and family life. Private and family life. Nobody will just come into your home without any legal warrant to start searching your house for any information. No. This Article 8 gives you that right to stop them from doing so or sue them from doing so. Now, I have Care Act 2014. This act, they provide a framework relating to health and social care. They ensure that your consent is provided, your consent is given before sharing your information. Care Act 2014. This act provides a framework on how local authorities should handle all information, gaining your consent before sharing them. So Care Act 2014 make sure that your consent is gained. They seek for your consent before they give out your information. Take for example, when you are applying for maybe phone contract or so, after taking your information, they will be like, are you happy for us to share your information with other companies? If you say yes, they will share. That is where sometimes you receive some advert or mail, or this is because you gave them consent to share it maybe with their partners. But when you say no, they cannot share it. If you say no and they share it, you have the right to sue them. All right. So the next one I have here is Health and Social Care Act 2008. This legislation mandates that all care providers must document accurately resident information and staff information must be kept secured. That is what this act. So both paper and device documentation must be secured and the information must be made accessible whenever you need it. Take for example, in your place of work, you have the right to walk up to your manager politely to seek for what is in your file. You want to know what you have in your file. Maybe you want to know if it is up to date or you want to see what they have got about you. You have that right to demand for it. And make sure that whatever information they have there is up to date and it is correct. CQC. So this legislation handles your information with all confidentiality. So whatever information you have got with them, they make sure that it is secured. It's all about security. It's all about uh, protecting you. It's all about making sure your information do not get to the wrong person. I hope you understand this number one. Now, the second question there says, summarize the main points of legal requirements and code of practice for handling information in adult care. What does this question mean? This question wants you to provide a brief overview. They want you to summarize bit by bit these regulations, what they mean or what they do or how they protect you. They just want you to give a very brief overview on how these regulations, guiding or relating managing and handling information, they want you to summarize everything about it. Okay, so the main goal and the reason for this, like I said before, is to protect personal information, right? It applies to all your personal data, everything concerning you, your information, your personal data. Any special reason for not following them, if because remember I said the Care Act 2014 said that they must gain your consent before they share your information. So while summarizing this, we also need to state that there are some occasions or some cases, exemptions, where your consent may not be needed before they will share your information. What are those exemptions or what are those conditions? Maybe police, law enforcement, say national security, the police, they may need it for investigation. So they may likely not wait for you to give your consent. For example, you've committed something, they have the right to call your employer and say, this has happened, this is under investigation. We need to know if this person is working with you, what is their name, their address, and all that. So your employer will have to give them your information without seeking for your consent because it is legal. Law enforcement. Yeah. Another one is during court cases. They can share your details without your consent. Medical research, scientific research, and also when an individual's life is at risk, they need to protect you at all costs. So they may not wait for you to give your consent for your information to be shared or not. So when there are cases like this, exemptions like this, so know your boundaries. Okay, every law have boundary. Know your boundaries. Yes, you have right to give consent, but there are occasions, there are cases they may need to share it without getting your consent. All right. So number one, remember what the question says. Summarize the main points. Now we start summarizing. Number one point I have here: follow the law of GDPR and Human Rights Act 1998 to protect people's rights and privacy. I have fair and lawful use of personal data. We are summarizing those regulations. So number one thing I have is fair and lawful use of individual personal data. Being honest about why you collect personal data and making sure that you are using it fairly. Before you collect someone's data, you make sure that you are telling them the truth why you are taking this data, and you make sure that you use it for exact reason why you collected the data. It's not like a case where somebody will say, put your fingerprint, we want to train you in school, without knowing that they want to use your fingerprint to rig election, or they want to use your fingerprint to do some other criminal activities without you knowing, whereas they have said, put your fingerprint because we want to get scholarship for you. That is against the law. So this regulation makes sure that there are fair and lawful use of personal data, being honest why your data is being collected, and making sure that your data is being used for that exact reason why you give it to them. The second point I have here is clear purpose. What do I mean? Making sure that people understand why you are collecting their data, and make sure that you use it for what they agreed on. The first one I said, love, fair and lawful use of personal data, being honest when collecting it. Now, the second one is clear purpose, making sure that people understand really why you are taking this data, and making sure that you only use it for that specific reason they agreed that you have to use it. If you take my name, my phone number, and my email address, and the discussion between us is for you to use it and apply for a job for me, I shouldn't one day wake up and get a notification that a parcel has been delivered in my house, because delivered for you in my house, just because you have my name, my number, and my email address, maybe possibly my house address. You now use them to get something, because remember, people take people's details to get credit card for themselves, to do some criminal activities. If that happens, then you have breached it. It's against the law. So clear purpose, making sure that people understand exactly why you are taking their data, and make sure you use it for what they agreed on. The next point I have here is collecting the right amount of data needed. Making sure to collect only the amount of data that is needed, and not taking too much. What do I mean? We have a case where you visited a school, and the only thing that is needed is your name, the time you come in, and the time you go out. But you come to the register, they need your name, your email address, your house address, your date of birth. That is too much information. It is not needed. Why should I give you all those information just because I want to make an inquiry in your school? So giving the right amount of information needed. And also, I'm visiting a school, I should write my name, the time I come in and the time I go out. But on getting to the register, the only thing I have there is to sign in and sign out, without my name, without the time. So what if something have gone wrong? How would you know the name of the person? How do you identify? So making sure you get the right amount of information needed for whatever thing purpose you want to use it for. Do not get too much, do not get lesser. The next point I have here is keeping data accurate. Remember, we are summarizing the legislations relating to how people's information will be handled. Keeping data accurate, making sure that your data is correct and up to date. Any changes must be made known. Like I said, you can go to your manager, Care Act, and demand to see what you've got in your file, and making sure that what they have in your file is the right and correct thing, because you cannot change your address and they're still paying you. Your pay slip is still bearing your old address. That is very, very wrong. If they need to send you letter, they're gonna send it to the old address, because that is what they have. They will be expecting you. It can cost you a lot. So make sure that whatever information that is in your file, or whatever information your company have, is the right one. So keeping accurate data, making sure that it is correct. Remember, the Care Act said all care providers must make sure they document accurately the resident information and their own information as well. So if you are, they can prosecute you for that. They can take offense for that, for giving them the wrong address. Are you up to something? Do you want to commit something and run away? So why do you give them the wrong one? Why did you change without letting them know? You change your email address, you have to let them know. You change your phone number, you have to let them know. You change address, you have to let them know. The next point I have here is not keeping data too long. Disposing of your personal information when it's no longer needed. We all understand that there are some places we apply for jobs, and sometimes you get mail like, we have your data so 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 and so so, are you still happy for us to keep your data with us? If you reply yes, they can keep it, but in that mail they will include that not responding to this automatically means you do not want them to keep it, so they will delete your data or your information off their system. So they are not allowed to keep your information for so long. So far they no longer need it, they have to dispose it. The next point I have here is respect people's rights. People should have access to their information. It should be made easy for them to have access to it. It should be accessible to them. Respect their demand to know what information you have about them. Just like I said, for example, in your place of work, your file should be accessible. You should be able to politely ask your manager to go through your file, and your file will be offered to you. If they deny you that, then it's suspicious. You can raise an alarm. Yeah. And the last one I have here is protecting and keeping data safe. Protect personal information to make sure that it is not lost, stolen, or misused. For example, not using someone's file to sell suya, or using someone's file to sell something, use it as maybe as a bag to wrap something to sell it. And this is a paper that contains someone's information. So protecting and keeping data safe, it all go to not keeping data too long. When you don't need it, dispose it properly, making sure that informations are disposed properly when they are no longer in use. So I hope with these explanations of these points, you are able to at least five points is enough. Okay, 5 points is okay. The next one I have here, which is the last question for Unit 2, says describe features of manual and electronic information storage system that help ensure security. What does it mean? It's asking you about how both manual, that is paperwork, and electronic, which is digital system, store information. We use to store information, how they can be secured, they can be safely stored and secured. So describe the features of manual and electronic information storage system. When you talk about manual information storage system, it is the use of paper, keyboard, and all that. Now, when you talk about electronic information storage system, it is the digital one, the use of computer and electronic devices. So when you talk about manual storage system, we make use of lock cabinets or drawers. Yeah. So storing paper in the cabinet, cupboard with locks to prevent unauthorized access. What do I mean? Talking about manual storage system. First of all, lock cabinet. Cabinet that has a lock where you can put a padlock, lock it after putting a file, so that someone will not have access to it. Someone who should not have access to it will never have access to that. So you put it and you lock it. Some offices still do it today. They still have cupboard, cabinets, wardrobe, drawers where they have lock. They put whatever file they want to put in there and lock it. The only person that can have access to that is someone that got the key. So that is one way of protecting and saving or storing information in a manual form. The next one I have is secured room or office. We have rooms or offices in a building with limited access. Like in school, they've got an office where they pack student results or student mark exam sheets. The only person that can have access to that is the lecturer. Students cannot just have access to that secured room. Okay, so secured room or office with limited access can help protect people's personal or sensitive information. The next one I have here is access logbook. What do I mean? Signing in and signing out whenever anyone have access to the secured room. When you go into the office where they made it limited that only somebody that have access to that. So when you have access to that, you have to sign in that you have gone in, and when you come out, you have to sign out that you are out already. Because so that if anything goes wrong, something goes missing, they can easily find out who had access to that secured room. The next one I have here is regular shredding of files that are no longer in use. So some offices, we see them, they burn it. Some people dig ground, put it there and burn it inside. Some people shred it, they make sure they tear it into pieces in a way that you can never have access to what is contained in the file. So destroying the unused file or old file that are no longer in use, destroying it so that nobody, that shouldn't have access to that unauthorized access, don't get to have what is inside that file. So these four things I mentioned are the 4 points I have as manual way of storing information: locked cabinet, secured room or offices, access logbook, and regular shredding of file, that is destroying of files that are no longer in use. Electronic storage system. Here we have use of password. Using strong password makes it very, very impossible for unauthorized person to have access. Just like our phone, in your phone, once you have a strong password in your phone, nobody can have access to that. Just coin something, put numbers, special characters, letters together, mix it together, make it very strong. Nobody will have access to that. The only person that may have access to that is the person that you shared the password with. Otherwise, no one can have access to that. So that's number one, electronic storage system. Some of our laptop, we put code, we have password, that when you come, you have to put password before you have access to that. The next one I have is encryption, a method of turning data into code such that only those who have the key to the code can decode it. For example, what do I mean? Encryption is a way, just like if we have password, but this one is straightforward. But this one, um, they code it in a way that you must have the access code to decode that, um, to decode it for you to have access to that information. What do I mean? Sometimes you might want to tell somebody to come back at 8. Now, come back at 8, COMA is come, but you see them when coding it, instead of writing C, they might write percentage, you know, CO, instead of writing O, they might use hash to put O. Instead of writing M, they might use hyphen. Instead of writing E, they might use um, anything, maybe plus. So, encryption. The next one I have here is firewall. Use of firewalls. What does this mean? Firewall is like a security guard for your computer or your network. It protects the computer from harmful things on the internet like virus and hackers. Firewalls is like, for example, your computer is like a house and your computer is on the street of internet. Internet is the street where your house is. Now, the firewall is like a gate guard, a gatekeeper, a security. Just like we have bank on the street of your town, and you have security guard all over the places, guarding both vehicle that comes in and vehicle that goes out. Okay, making sure that the only vehicle that comes in are the authorized ones, and the vehicle that goes out are the authorized ones. That is what firewall does. So firewall protects your computer, you know, it protects the computer, it protects so that on the internet you cannot just send something. Hackers can just send something and hack your system, crack it down, and have access to what you have there. So that is what firewall does. I hope you understand what that explanation, that description. I said that in a street, that street is the internet. You've got a house, that house is your computer. Now you need a security guard that will guard your house that is on the street, because people are passing in and passing out. Those people that are passing in and passing out are data, people's data information going in and out. So firewall is like that security guard standing to make sure that data coming in and coming out are the ones that should come in and the ones that should go out. Anyone that is not, maybe they trace that hackers are coming, they trace that thieves are coming, they will fight back immediately. So they don't crack down your house and steal from it. That is what firewall does. Okay. Mhm. The next one I have is access control. Setting different levels of access control for users in such a way that only the person that have that access control to that thing will go in. Just like in an office, your fingerprint will be registered. So for you to go inside the door, you have to put your fingerprint. Once you put your fingerprint, it will be recognized because your fingerprint have been registered. So only those that their fingerprint have been registered will have access to that. So that is another way of protecting our information, giving only those that should have access to that access to go in and come out. So computer access control can be password, it can be PIN, it can be fingerprint, it can be your face recognition, for you to have access to that file. Now, the last one I have here is backup and recovery system. This means creating backups of important information or data, such that if for any reason something happened, you will not lose all the information. So, yeah, this is all we have for Unit 2. Now we move to Unit 3. If you like what we are doing, please do not forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Subscription is free. Thank you.